Let go of me, Kelsey. You're making a scene.
A scene? You haven't seen one yet.
Whoa, hey, both of you, stop!
I'm not letting you humiliate me any further. Put the
You
plate down.
deserve every...
The room fell silent. Laughter froze mid-breath. A golden streak of egg yolk slid down Danielle's uniform, dripping onto the marble floor. For a moment, even time seemed to stop. The billionaire's wife sat back in her chair, smiling, as if cruelty were a game she always won. Phones rose quietly. A flash, a whisper. And within hours, that single act would ignite a storm no amount of money could contain. This isn't just a humiliation story. It's about what happens when fear meets justice. Welcome. Story lovers, comment your city below and tell us where you're watching from. The morning sun gleamed across the marble floors of the Harrington estate, a mansion so vast it could swallow 10 city blocks. It was the kind of place where silence itself felt expensive, where even the maids whispered as they worked. At the center of it all stood Margaret Harrington, the billionaire's wife. Her world was one of control, her voice, the law, her wealth, the armor that kept her untouchable. To outsiders, she was charm and charity wrapped in pearls. To those beneath her, staff, servers, drivers, she was something else entirely. Cold, calculated, fear dressed in luxury. Every movement she made seemed rehearsed, every smile an illusion polished for photographs. That morning, the house buzzed with anticipation. The annual charity brunch, Margaret's signature event, was underway. Influencers, investors, and city elites filled the glittering dining hall, sipping champagne as if it were oxygen. Cameras flashed, laughter echoed, and waitstaff glided through the crowd, invisible yet essential. Among them was Danielle, a young black waitress working her third shift that week. She moved carefully, balancing trays like fragile hope. For her, this job wasn't glamorous, it was survival. College bills, rent due, dreams she couldn't afford to lose. As Danielle approached Margaret's table, she could feel the eyes, the kind that measured worth before words. The wife's gaze followed her like a shadow, sharp, curious, faintly amused. There was something about Danielle's calmness, her quiet dignity, that seemed to unsettle the woman who ruled with wealth. Outside, the breeze stirred the garden. Inside, something colder was brewing, something that would shatter the illusion of control that Margaret had built around herself. Because before the afternoon ended, one act of cruelty, one public humiliation, would turn every head in that glittering room. And the woman everyone feared would learn that power, once misused, has a way of turning on its master. The brunch was in full swing now, an orchestra of crystal clinks, laughter and shallow compliments echoing through the sunlit hall. Chandeliers glittered overhead, scattering light across polished silver and gold-edged plates. Everything gleamed, except the hearts of those serving it. Danielle moved with practiced precision, weaving between tables lined with billionaires and socialites. Her tray trembled slightly, not from inexperience, but from the weight of scrutiny. Every move she made seemed to attract the sharp gaze of Margaret Harrington. From her throne-like seat at the head table, Margaret surveyed the room with the composure of a queen among subjects. Her husband, Richard, sat beside her, pleasant, quiet, the kind of man who had long since learned to let her rule. Every guest deferred to her, every conversation revolved around her. She was the sun of their shallow solar system. Danielle approached with a tray of quiche and fresh juice, her polite smile masking the tension beneath. As she bent slightly to serve, a guest brushed her arm, spilling a faint streak of egg yolk across the pristine white tablecloth. A tiny mistake. Harmless, but not to Margaret. The billionaire's wife froze. Her eyes narrowed on the stain, then slowly rose to Danielle. The room quieted by instinct, the way prey senses danger before the strike. Margaret's lips curved into something between a smirk and a sneer. "How careless," she murmured, her tone soft but sharp enough to cut. The guests chuckled, unsure whether to laugh or look away. Danielle tried to apologize, her voice steady but low. She reached for a napkin to clean it, but Margaret stopped her hand mid-motion. "Don't bother," she said, lifting her own plate of food, a delicate omelet glistening with egg yolk. "Let me show you how a real mess looks." And with a deliberate motion, slow, calculated, Margaret tilted the plate forward. The yolk slid, thick and golden, splattering across Danielle's apron, dripping onto her arm, staining her uniform. Gasps rippled around the table. Laughter followed. Tight, uncomfortable, the kind that tried to hide cruelty behind civility. Cameras flashed discreetly. Someone whispered, "Oh my God, did she just—" Danielle froze. The warmth of the yolk burned against her skin, but the humiliation burned deeper. Every instinct told her to run, to cry, to disappear, but she didn't move. She stood tall, eyes glistening, breathing slowly. Margaret leaned back, sipping her mimosa with satisfaction. "Now that's taken care of," she said lightly. "Next time, be more attentive." Her husband glanced up, discomfort flickering across his face, but he said nothing. No one did. Power had silenced them all. Danielle turned quietly, walking away from the table, her hands steady even as her heart pounded. The other staff avoided her eyes, afraid that pity alone might cost them their jobs. In the kitchen, the hum of machinery drowned out the laughter from the hall. Danielle stood by the sink, washing off the yolk with trembling fingers. Her reflection in the stainless steel looked foreign, humiliated, yes, but not broken. Something inside her hardened that moment. Back in the dining room, the event continued as if nothing had happened. Music resumed, glasses clinked, and cameras captured smiles. But somewhere among the guests, a young woman recorded the incident on her phone. Just one clip, 30 seconds long, and before the sun set that day, that clip would find its way online. By nightfall, the world would see the moment the woman everyone feared revealed who she truly was. And the power she flaunted so proudly, it was about to crumble faster than anyone could imagine. By evening, the video had exploded across every corner of the internet. It was everywhere, on phones, in news feeds, in headlines that screamed, "Billionaire's wife humiliates black waitress." The short clip captured everything: the arrogance, the laughter, the cruelty, frozen in time. Margaret's name, once synonymous with prestige, now burned with outrage. Sponsors pulled out. Charities she chaired distanced themselves overnight. The comments poured in, millions of them, voices united in anger, disbelief, and heartbreak. Inside her mansion, the atmosphere shifted from luxury to panic. Reporters crowded the gates. Her husband refused interviews. The silence that once obeyed her now condemned her. Every knock on the door sounded like judgment. Every reflection was a reminder of the woman she had become. Meanwhile, Danielle sat in her tiny apartment, scrolling through the same clip, but not with vengeance. Just quiet disbelief. Strangers she'd never met were defending her, lifting her voice higher than she'd ever imagined. The world that once ignored her had suddenly seen her pain and cared. By the next morning, Margaret's empire of respect had crumbled. Invitations revoked, partnerships ended, and in the same city where she once made others feel small, people now crossed the street to avoid her. It was poetic in a way. The woman who poured yolk to humiliate another was now drenched in her own shame. Her wealth could buy silence once, but now it couldn't buy forgiveness. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. Weeks passed, but the echoes of that moment refused to fade. Margaret's mansion, once alive with parties and praise, stood eerily still. The help she commanded with fear was gone. The friends she flaunted disappeared, and the mirrors that once reflected pride now showed her regret, unavoidable, unfiltered, and raw. She issued apologies, wrote statements, hired publicists, but the world had already seen the truth. Her reputation wasn't stolen, it was revealed. Power without empathy had collapsed under the weight of its own arrogance. Danielle, meanwhile, found herself standing in a place she'd never imagined. People reached out, some offering jobs, others sharing stories of their own humiliation and resilience. She became a quiet voice for dignity, for fairness, for those too afraid to speak when cruelty hides behind wealth. Yet Danielle never gloated. Her strength wasn't born from revenge. It came from the simple act of standing tall when the world tried to push her down. The story became more than a viral moment. It became a mirror, forcing people to ask who they become when no one's watching and what they value more, status or humanity. In the end, Margaret learned that fear builds walls, but respect builds legacies. And once those walls crumble, only truth remains. Because in a world obsessed with power, kindness is still the one thing money can't buy. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more powerful stories. And tell us, what would you have done if you were in Danielle's place?